dispensed with that item. And we now move on to supplemental 58B.
Under OC Community Resource, approve operator agreement with Mercy House Living Centers, Inc. for operation of year-round emergency shelter and multi-service center at 1000 North Kramer Place, Anaheim. Approve rent-free lease with Mercy House Living Centers, Inc. upon completion of rehabilitation and receipt of certificate of occupancy for 1000 North Kramer Place, Anaheim, for a term of 20 years, renewable for 2 additional 10-year terms. Select construction option A or B and authorize staff to proceed with construction option as directed. Approve cooperative funding agreement with City of La Habra for shelter and supportive services. Authorize director designee to execute operator agreement and exercise cost contingency increase or decrease not to exceed 10%, make non-substantial amendments and line item budget transfers under certain conditions. Authorize chief real estate officer or designee to execute rent-free lease and subsequent lease amendments under certain conditions. Authorize county executive officer or designee to execute cooperative funding agreement and consider application of final mitigated negative declaration number IP 15-114 and other findings.
Oh, yeah. All right, supervisors.
Colleagues, I'm going to make a different recommendation than the staff recommendation. I think I mentioned earlier when Council Member Murray was here that Supervisor Nelson and I had met with the staff at 1000 North Kramer. It feels like a year ago, but I think it was just last week. Look, the challenge of the homelessness in California is growing each day. It's getting really bad in Orange County. I have never received more complaints when I go to different public events, and more people are concerned about the tents they're seeing on the embankments and driving down the freeway along the 57. I mean, it's a serious countywide problem, and it's a nationwide problem. But we really have to focus on what we can control. And what's going on in the flood control channels with the temporary encampments, the individuals living without shelter. Look, we're all committed. We've talked about this. I have to tell you, it was hours ago, but the gentleman whose wife has, I think he said cancer, it's heartbreaking. I can't tell you how touched I was by his testimony. A couple of people testified how thankful they are that they have a place to go across the street. That's like, we just get our rear ends kicked all the time, right, on everything we do. So to have end users come in and say we did something great is very touching. We've taken the leadership on the courtyard. We've purchased Kramer. We've set the vision for Kramer as a Central County multi-service center, but we need Kramer online sooner rather than later. And I've kind of lit a little bit of a fire under Mr. Kim at I don't know, maybe 3 months ago at a board meeting. We can't wait a year to open Kramer. The staff recommendation is basically make a choice between waiting and opening Kramer when it's all built out, consistent with the operations plan, which Mr. Kim has informed us is at least another year. And there's a request for another $10 million above the budget. And neither one of those is acceptable to myself or Supervisor Nelson. I think we do have a meeting of the minds. Although I'm really interested to hear what he has to say as well. But I propose we direct staff to open Kramer as quickly as possible. That instead of waiting over a year for a full service facility, let's take the action now and put forward an interim center in the short term that will provide relief to individuals consistent with the operations plan. We've got to be so careful about this because you know how easily what we say gets misinterpreted or our actions that provide confusion. We have an operations plan. Kramer's never intended to be an armory. It was never intended to be just a shelter. It's a specific housing unit with services designed to target a certain type of population who has the greatest likelihood of success of actually ending homelessness. So it has to be safe and secure. All the boxes on code requirements that we discussed with Mr. Silsby, he was there. There's all kinds of issues that have to be taken care of, but we can help move people from the side of the freeway into at least a basic shelter as we work simultaneously towards a full multi-service operational model. So again, Mr. Kim, I need you to say on the record, okay, because we have a letter from Mayor Fitzgerald and Chris Murray and all the other council members who are all in on this with money and everything else, that if we do this, that we will uphold the operations plan. In other words, we're not going to cut corners, right? We're going to still look at the population. We're going to have a safety plan. We're going to check people in. They can't walk up. They can't loiter. Everything pursuant to the operation plan. But let me make the motion, then you can comment. So my motion is direct staff to configure the existing building spaces for early shelter occupancy under the existing budget authority, which is give or take $3 million, and return to the board for construction phasing to complete the full project scope consistent with the management, operations, and public safety plan. So for purposes of discussion, Supervisor Nelson, I love you to weigh in. That would be my motion. Hopefully you either second it or want to modify it a little bit.
I'll second the motion. I don't want to modify it. I just want to be clear.
Okay.
When I read the letter from Orange, Fullerton, and Anaheim, what's getting confused here is a plan of operations and what services you offer and a construction plan. The bricks and mortar can be configured in all kinds of ways. The management plan is the same. We got more offices. We toured through that thing. There's 50 offices. We could demo 2/3 of them and have more offices than we're ever going to need. So we are not deviating at all from the plan. The plan is don't loiter. It doesn't matter what the shower room looks like as far as loitering. The plan is that you don't have walk-up service. So the plan is an operational issue, and we are not deviating at all. And I think it's dangerous to start talking about, well, we'll phase in. We're not phasing in the plan. We can't necessarily do every single construction improvement on a permanent basis the way ultimately that center will be completed. One of the issues is whether or not it has a commercial kitchen. I think that's in flux. The cost is varying. We'll get to that, but we're still going to feed people every day. There are just other vendors that will do that. So Supervisor Spitzer, I support the effort. I appreciate you going out, meeting with me and working with staff. Just let there be no mention that what we're doing on an interim basis is phasing in the plan. We're not phasing in the plan. The plan isn't going to change. What we're phasing in is construction improvements that will better address ways to manage that plan on that site. Temporary showers, permanent showers, big locker rooms, shiny wood door, plastic door. Those are all sort of, interior design issues. The plan is not changing.
Okay. Any additional comments? All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Spitzer. Oh, CEO.
Just wanted to comment and respond to Supervisor Spitzer. So our recommendations are consistent with the motion from Supervisor Spitzer that we would be phasing in the construction component. So obviously it's a large facility. We can open a portion of it early to start providing the beds that are needed in the community. But what it means is that if we're working on developing and constructing permanent restrooms, we may have portable showers or restrooms available during the interim time during the construction phase. But we will adhere to all of those elements of the management operating plan, which is a check-in reservation system. We'll have security. We'll provide wraparound services. We will do all of that, but there will be concurrent construction. Our plan is as soon as our public works staff and our Director of Care Coordination can complete the revised phase construction design element, we'll bring that contract to your board as soon as possible. And in fact, it's likely that we would have the board hear that item before the facility is even partially open. So just understand that while we are operating the facility in this temporary capacity, we will have concurrent construction on the site.
If this motion passes, how soon can we start having people occupy it? It's basically the whole concrete. It looks like a big gymnasium. It's like a loading dock, big doors in the back, right?
So there's portions of it that lend itself to expedited opening. But I would also remind the board that we also need to take action on approving the Mercy House contract. That is a part of the recommended actions. And with that, I'd ask Shane to respond to.
Oh, you mean, so my motion was incomplete, right? Did I not? Okay.
I understood it to include approving the agreement.
I don't think I properly stated that. So just for the record then, it would be that my motion as stated, and then the additional recommended actions, I apologize, having to do with, approving the operating agreement.
Okay, do you have any questions for Shane?
I had a
long?
pending question, I
How
think.
quickly can they have?
Yeah, when can we have clients there?
Yeah, good evening Supervisors. Shane Silsby, Director of Public Works. We're looking at a potential of about 4 to 6 months. I'm erring on the side of 4. Since if we can get through this, we're talking about, you all took the tour, the loading dock area for sleeping, I guess 24 hours, but that area for occupancy, and then the upstairs offices under existing occupancy of the building. We wouldn't be able to have the medical portion of that up there because that would have triggered the elevator and things like that, so that will have to be on a trailer outside the building.
Or downstairs.
And then in the future. So what we're trying to do, just as Frank said, we're trying to minimize impacts to the building in this initial opening so that we can maximize the flexibility to complete the rest of the construction plan.
All right, well, colleagues, listen, it's not perfect, but living on the street out of a shopping cart is clearly not perfect. So I think the philosophy is that getting people inside with at least 4, with 4 walls and a roof is a lot better, right, with services and everything else than what people have today. So that's why it's so compelling. I want to thank staff for really understanding just how important this is. I mean, I know you want to do it quickly. I know also you're pushing back a little. You want to do it right. And so we really appreciate that. We're not asking to cut any corners at all, but we've got to get people into this location as quickly as possible. So I really want to thank you very much. I want to especially thank Supervisor Nelson for pushing this.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Any objection? Okay, that item passes. Supervisor Doe needs to leave shortly, so we have actually 3 items that I want to cover. I want to go back to item 53 because that